And a second. Any council comments on the meeting minutes? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Med.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Glees.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. Thank you. We'll go first to the Personnel Committee. Councilor Kleekst.
Thank you, Madam President. The Personnel Committee has two items on the agenda for tonight. The first item is the nomination of Rosa Gupera for reappointment to the Civil Service Board. So there isn't much to say about this reappointment. Ms. Rosa has been serving on the board for a 4-year term, and her current term expires this month. And she has expressed her interest in being reappointed. And are there any questions or comments about this reappointment from other members of the committee? From council as a whole? From the public? Hearing none, now I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on August 13.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
And the next item on the agenda for the Personnel Committee tonight is the nomination for reappointment of the Board of Plumbing Examiners. The following individuals have been serving on the board for quite some time, and their terms expired this month, and they express a willingness to be reappointed. We have Eric Weiss, Chad Walton, Barry Solder, Sean Way, and Trent Myers. Are there any questions or comments about these reappointments? From council, from other members of the committee, from the public? So I'll make a motion to move these reappointments to the next council meeting on August 13.
Motion to approve.
All in favors?
Aye.
Thank you. That's all for the Personnel Committee, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Councilor Kleekst. We'll now move to the Finance Committee. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. This evening, we have two items on our agenda this evening. The very first one is the Lancaster Public Library 2025 budget request, which I believe we have members of the Public Library here today. Mr. Hindley?
John, make sure that microphone in front of you is green.
Would it be helpful to have copies of the PowerPoint, or are you all able to see that?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
We have our screens in front of us. Great, thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to update you on the activities of Lancaster Public Library and to bring a request for funding for your 2025 budget. So I am John Hindley. I'm the Director of Donor Advising at the library. I joined the library staff in November, so this is my first opportunity to come before the council in this way. So thank you again for having us. Much of this will be review for those of you on council and for the public, but just a few things about the library, our mission and vision. The Lancaster Public Library inspires, empowers, and strengthens our community by connecting people with information, ideas, and enriching experiences. By providing equitable access to vital educational resources, exceptional programming, and community building opportunities, the Lancaster Public Library is recognized as a dynamic center of knowledge and the cornerstone of a thriving Lancaster community. We're pleased to report last year, 2023, our statistics of usage by Lancaster City residents. 46% of Lancaster City residents are library card holders. And over the course of the year, over 73,000 materials were borrowed by city residents. And to get an idea of what that means in dollar figures, what that has offered to the community, that's $4.3 million approximately in materials that were borrowed within our community in the last year, which is pretty amazing. And as many of you know, though I didn't know all of this until I joined the library staff, there's a lot more than books in the library. So if you're not familiar with all of these, we have a Business and Reference Center, which is an amazing resource for entrepreneurs, small businesses, startups, nonprofits to access databases and other things that would be a very significant investment of resources for them. We have a Sensory and Autism Resource Center for individuals and families to access resources with sensory disorders. The Lancaster Collection, which is a really special collection of historic resources. A lot of people come in, especially for genealogy, to research in that space. It's really beautiful in the new library as well. If you haven't seen it yet, come check it out. We have hotspot devices, and we are currently adding additional hotspot devices as part of the ARPA funds that we received through the city as a sub-recipient of the ARPA grant, and are excited about, I'll share more, but expanding our outreach program and making more hotspots available to residents. We have a lot of different e-resources, e-books, audiobooks, streaming services, almost like free Netflix. If you're not already on there, check it out. We have incredible programs for children, for youth, for adults, and programs as well for all ages together. And then lots of fun things that you can check out, like American Girl dolls, tabletop and lawn games, museum passes, baking pans, musical instruments. I currently have out a parachute for our neighborhood block party tomorrow night. It's not too late to get something for your neighborhood block party for tomorrow night. As you know, we moved into the library into the new library space just behind here within the last year, or just over a year ago. And a lot of exciting new opportunities we have in that space. We're fully ADA accessible, which is a huge improvement. We have a full space that's dedicated for our young adult patrons. Work and study rooms, both in the young adult space and also on the first floor. Major technology upgrades compared to the previous space. We have an outdoor terrace that we just reopened today, so come back to try that out. And I mentioned the Business and Reference Center, which has been enhanced. And we're working on greater support for immigrants, language services, and one of the things we have upcoming here shortly is introductory ASL training for all of our staff to better serve our deaf and hard of hearing patrons. And this is one of the things we're particularly excited about. Again, with the ARPA funds, one of the opportunities that opened up for us was to grow our outreach program. And so two things that we'll be doing with that is adding a full-time outreach librarian who will be able to be out in the community full-time and also support the work of our other librarians who as well get out to do outreach activities, and a vehicle that will support that as well, that will be a mobile pop-up library that we can take out into the community and offer a selection of all of our services, including laptops and hotspots out in the community. So we want to particularly thank the City of Lancaster for the support with the ARPA funding for that. We are 62% funded through internally generated funds, and this includes fundraising activities, support from the community, private donors, foundations, as well as internal services that we offer like passport processing. 38% of our funding comes from government entities. And I think you've probably seen this before, that we are very much on the low end relative to the national average on local funding per capita. Lancaster Public Library is funded at $1.32 per capita relative to the national average of $39.86 per capita. And that's taking the average of our 14 municipalities that we serve as Lancaster Public Library. I am pleased to support that in that average, the city of Lancaster is pulling more than its weight relative to the others at 191 per capita that we're receiving this year in funding. So thank you for that. Just very quickly, some stats. We are one of the largest libraries in the state of Pennsylvania, and with the resources that we have are making an outsized impact in our community. Knowing that, as you saw, the funding is not where we would like it to be, our staff are doing amazing work in the programs they're offering, the services they're offering, even with the funding at the level that it's at, which goes to show how much could be done and will be done as we're able to increase funding, both from municipalities and from private donors and foundations and local businesses. One of the steps, and I believe that Mr. Harris shared this with all of you already, we have recently updated some of our policies in an effort to have better transparency. It's been an interesting last few months, as you know, for Lancaster Public Library and the community, and we have recognized that one of the things that we can do is better communicate with our community and have more transparent policies that anybody can access at any time and understand together. And so these have included updating our program policy, our meeting room policy, which is how we refer to our rentals, both nonprofit and for-profit rentals, the application for rental, and we've also recently added a statement of welcome and respect. And anyone can access those and any of our policies on our website at any time. I won't go into all the programs that we offer. This is just a sampling of a few of the cool things that are happening and continue to happen. And again, these represent all sorts of different age activities. The microscope program, telescope program, Steinman Foundation has been really helpful in funding those STEM areas. Our Builders Lab, we have a laptop lending program for teens and young adults. We have a teen gaming club that's very popular, Explorer bags for our children that are a great way to encounter different science areas. We have the Bits and Bytes technology classes that have been very popular. One of our librarians that joined more recently is expanding that program and offering a lot of technology introductions at various levels to our community. Spanish language story time, again, in an effort to reach our diverse community. Pajama story time, a family favorite. Folk music series, this is a new one. Check it out. Look at our calendar for more details. The LGBTQ plus book club is one that we added recently. That's a monthly book club. And the photo there is from our Earth Day extravaganza, the inaugural Earth Day extravaganza on Ewell Plaza. There have been many areas that have been strengthened in the library over the last year, and I won't go through all of these stats, but you can see that the usage has increased, the patrons who visit have increased. We're really thrilled with being there in Ewell Plaza, and even though it was just a block away from where we were before, feels like it's really put us into the heart of the community and community activities in a different way. And so we've been very grateful and know that the city has been a huge partner in that move as well. And I'll note especially the computer sessions. We've seen a real uptick, more than doubled our computer usage in this new space. So just want to say thank you so much to the City of Lancaster, to this council, for the generous support, faithful support over many, many years, helping the library to serve our community, to serve in partnership together our community. In 2024, we are receiving $110,000 from the City of Lancaster. Thank you for that. That $110,000 is a huge part of what is making possible everything that I just shared and much, much more that there's not time to go into. And also want to especially highlight the ARPA grant, which I already mentioned. The team from the city has been amazing at accompanying us in helping to make that possible. Barry in particular has been a huge asset in helping us navigate that and make sure that we came up with a plan that fit the parameters of the grant and really is going an incredibly long way in impacting the community. So areas that is funding, just so you know, is early literacy, computer and internet access, small business and entrepreneurial support, and that expanded outreach program that I already mentioned. So the ask, thank you again for your support. We do invite your support again in 2025. And I recognize that you all have quite a process in setting up 2 budgets in anticipation of the home rule vote. I don't envy you. Thank you for all the work that you all are doing in that. And recognize that we are one of many, many important services within the city. We do invite your partnership again next year, and if it's possible, we would request at least a 4% increase to that 110,000. If it's possible to go higher than that, we would be thrilled, and for any amount, we would be incredibly grateful. Any questions? And I've included my contact information there if there are questions later on as well. And our Executive Director, Lissa Holland, is here as well, and she may jump in to answer any questions that she's better able to answer.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Huntley. And just to comment, thank you for the services that the public library continues to support or invest in our community. It's always a good reminder to know that the public library is a lot more than books. While I appreciate a good book, there's a lot of services and cool things to experience there. So thank you for all that you guys do. I'll open up any questions or comments from the committee or full council.
Councilor Roy.
Thank you, Councilor Roy. I'd like you to speak a little more about the outreach librarian and what her duties or their duties would be.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this, and if you want to jump in, feel free. So we already have a very vibrant outreach program, and a lot of that is in partnership with local nonprofits and schools. So our existing library staff, prior to this expansion, get into the local schools, different schools within School District Lancaster and elsewhere in our service area, and also a lot of activities with other partners. Some of those outreach activities, which are to engage in an educational component and help the community understand what the library is and what it's offering, some of those happen on site. So Boys and Girls Club might come to visit, and it would be a chance for them to get a tour to see what is happening in the library. And some of those are off-site. So we'll often go into the schools or into the other programs in the community. So we have a lot of different existing partnerships with nonprofits in the community. With the expanded outreach component, where currently we have many different staff who will go out for an event, they'll, be at Open Streets maybe or something like that. By expanding that and adding a full-time position, we'll really be able to engage the community much more thoroughly, take more initiative in that. And currently we can't even respond to all of the requests that come to us that we would love to do every single one, because if somebody's reaching out to us, we want to partner. And having a full-time person will take us in that direction in being able to respond to those requests so that we can get into the community, and also to create opportunities for things like pop-up library presence. So with this vehicle, the idea is that we'll outfit it to have an awning that would come out, have tables and chairs that will go along. We'll set up with the laptops, with the hotspots anywhere in the community so that people can use the resources that they would be able to use at the library, but they might not be able to get downtown, or might not feel comfortable, or any number of things that might be barriers. We're trying to reduce those barriers, get out into the community, into people's immediate community. And so ideally we would love to do rotating pop-ups where we might be in a particular park or at a particular partner site. I think of Brightside Opportunity Center would be an example of a place like that maybe every first Tuesday we would try to be there, and so people would know where they could find us, and also lend out resources, get people signed up for library cards, offer kind of a scaled back version of any of the library services, but right in people's immediate community.
Thank you.
Any addition?
Councilor Diaz?
One thing, this has been my dream since I interviewed for the position back in 2020. And so it's really to get to the people who are underserved. They can't get to us, so we want to get to them. So we really will be focusing on events that for people who may not even understand what a library is, for a family who doesn't read a lot. We're not going to be going places where the population is probably well versed. We want to reach the people where they are to get them comfortable.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question related to the homeless population. How are you contending with the situation with either alcoholism or anyone that would come into the library that might be using illicit drugs, or you feel that they're mentally, confrontational?
Do you want to answer it, or do you want me to? Do you want to come on up?
Anybody is welcome to the library. Our main mission, unfortunately, is not to be the outreach for people in need. However, we are the hub of information. So what we do is if we see somebody, we will go up. We ask, we have several organizations that come to the library on a regular basis to meet with their clients, including like the Food Hub. We also have a room an office that nonprofits can use for free to meet with their clients. We're not social workers, so we will allow people to stay in the library no matter if they're under the influence or not, as long as they are following the rules and are not disruptive to the other patrons. I know a lot of people complain about that, but we serve everybody. One of the exciting things that we are doing this year is partnering with Samaritan Counseling. It's a pilot program of putting some of the interns and residents to spend potentially 20 hours, which is nothing, but it is better than having no one, to provide information, help, guidance as needed.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Council President?
Thank you very much. I was wondering if you could just address your late fee policies, if there's been any changes to them, maybe what portion of your budget is made up of those, and have you seen any significant increases or decreases, or suspect that there might be some in your next year's budget?
That's something that the whole county has been talking about as a system. We did do a pilot program from January 1st to the end of March, and we charged no late fees. Anybody could bring back any book, no matter how long overdue it was, for free.
From any time?
From any time.
So amnesty on the late fees then?
Unfortunately, we were pretty shocked. The board wasn't really gung-ho on this idea because it is a line item for us. We were sure, staff-wise, because this is the big buzz in library school, that people would come in droves to return and thank us. We actually had people asking why we weren't charging fines. Because it did not have a huge impact that we could track and see, we also were in the midst of a fairly large controversy at the time. We will try this again next year, but there is only one library in the county that has waived all fees. If we had this financial support, I would do the same thing. It's just, we are back up to where we would have been if we had not started that pilot program, which we are surprised about that too. And we got no pushback when we went off of it. I expected some kind of pushback, and we did not get it.
It's about 50,000.
I appreciate your
I
candor on
think it's
that.
about, I was going to say 49.
I think in terms of percentage, I don't remember the exact figure, and we can get it to you later, but I think it's somewhere around $50,000, so in the range of 2.5%, if I have the math in my head correct. But we could follow up on that. And we do have better mechanisms in place now where we would be able to run a test period to get better data on how that's being utilized.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's good insight, and it's interesting when you try to an experiment. You think people will react one way and they don't. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Councilor Ahmed?
Thank you, Councilor Royal, and thank you guys for the presentation and all the work that you do. I know that you guys do a lot of work with like workforce development, and how is that going to be expanded in 2025, and particularly with some of the immigrant and refugee work that you would like to expand? How is workforce development going to tie into that?
We have career links that come in, they come in every Tuesday for the entire day to answer questions. They sometimes are really busy, sometimes they aren't, but there's always some kind of flow to them. We are also one of the sites that has their job kiosk, career kiosk, so patrons can come and self-serve going through that. We are very excited about working with SACA for the first time on doing a Spanish job fair later this fall, that various companies will come into the library, and they are promoting it, as are we. We are hoping that we will do, we are looking at expanding our services to the immigration. But again, our mission is not just that. It's to provide information, and we are trying to find ways to print everything in various languages, or at least major languages that we serve.
Church World Service. Do we have a representative from Church World
Oh,
Service?
yes. As John has reminded me, we also work with Church World Services doing programming, and we have a new trustee who will come to August for his first board meeting, who is represents another culture.
Thank you, and that concludes my questions, Councilor Royal.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed. Councilor Hirsch?
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, John and Melissa, for the presentation, and thank you for the invaluable service that you're providing the community. I kind of just wanted to ask a question about that chart you showed us, with the gap between Pennsylvania and the rest of the country as far as government funding of libraries goes. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that Pennsylvania, relative to other states in the country, provides significantly less funding to public libraries, and my understanding is that's part of it. But if you could just speak to like what that gap is, or what some of the things that cause that gap.
To be perfectly clear, that $1.32 just represents Lancaster Public Library. It does not represent any other library, so it's our personal gap between the national number of $39.86.
And that is the local municipality funding, not state funding, represented in that figure.
Yes.
So our biggest gap is the state funding is not as significant of a gap for us in terms of Pennsylvania versus other states. But as Pennsylvania has a localized government system, there's a lot of freedom for local municipalities to decide how they allocate their tax dollars and budget dollars. And so within our 14 municipalities, that's where the gap occurs for us specifically between the national average and our local experience.
So if I'm understanding correctly, it's more the municipal organization. I'm thinking of a place like, I know Virginia, things are a little more consolidated on the county level. And I imagine you're basically saying more funding probably comes forth because of that arrangement, as opposed to Pennsylvania, where we have this tapestry of municipalities.
Yeah, the state recommendation is $5 per capita. The $5 per capita would be allocated by local municipalities for the local library. Our average, of course, is significantly under that, and to varying degrees depending on which municipality within our service area.
all we have to do is go across county lines, and life would be very different in the public library. In Chester County, each municipality gives over $5 per capita for their residents. We figured that if we had $5 per capita in just our service area here in Lancaster, we would bring in over $1 million, which would make a huge difference. But you cross the line to New Jersey, Delaware, and they are better funded. Another problem with Lancaster County is that we're all independent. So we all have our own boards, we all do our own buying. And when the state and the county funding comes through, it gets divided up using a formula with all sorts of different pieces of data that often Lancaster Public Library gets hurt. For instance, part of it is if our municipalities give us how much money they give, and we have several who take it upon themselves to divide their municipality funding between different libraries that are not their home library or their service area library. So there are a lot of different factors that go into it. But bottom line is we do a whole lot with very little and appreciate everything the city does for us.
I think that's very evident. Thank you for that.
Councilor Sharp?
Thank you, Councilor Aware. Thank you guys for the presentation, and thank you for what you're doing for the community. In your presentation, one of your bullet points mentions greater support for immigrants. Could you please provide a little bit more details about that?
We want to work with the city in your welcoming area, or welcoming status. But even before then, we have wanted to beef up that area. Something very simple we're going to do is have a civil corner where people can get information about various organizations that they can get help with, including ESL classes as well as citizenship classes. We are hoping to restart our ESL and our citizenship classes. We don't run them. After COVID, those two organizations didn't come back, but we're hoping to get them back. We've also beefed up our world languages, and we're hoping to have more programming that is geared towards being an immigrant here in Lancaster. Is there anything else that we had talked about? I think those.
Maybe just to highlight Lissa mentioned the welcoming city, and we are working on getting some information to the city so that we're included in that report that's being put together. And one of the things that came up as we were doing that was the possibility of that designation also helping us with pursuing grant funding. And we anticipate what we have heard. We've not taken time to research yet, though we do have great grant research databases, again, for any nonprofits out there. So we do plan to research within our databases what opportunities there are for welcoming libraries and libraries within welcoming cities for grant money specifically devoted to immigrant community, to other communities that would be marginalized, that libraries can better serve. So that's anticipated.
So,
One more point. We are hoping to add another adult service librarian to our staff in January, and that person's niche will be immigration. I mean, they will need to know lots of other things, but their focus will be on how to serve the immigrant community better. And if luck has it, we'll get somebody with the master's who speaks a different language also.
Do you guys have done any research or to target those immigrant communities who need help? You're gonna provide help to those immigrants, but do you target them? Are you in touch, with some of those communities, immigrant communities?
Yeah, and that's well, I guess two things. One, as Lissa has mentioned, we aren't the ones that do the direct service in every area. So a lot of it occurs through partnerships, Church World Service or other partners that are the experts in that area. And so a lot of our direction comes from that. And just a very simple but concrete example would be if you have been into the library, the big staircase as you go up, that has Discover in all of the most common languages in Lancaster City on it, which came from partnership with Church World Service from School District of Lancaster, so that we knew that we represented who was part of our community. But the other, Lissa mentioned the new board member that will be joining and represents one immigrant culture, refugee experience. And so that's an intentional step in better understanding, better relating to, and giving voice to that very significant part of our community.
Thank you so much.
We have that
No more
program
questions.
with
Thank you.
People's Bank
Thank you,
in
Councilor Rodriguez.
Spanish.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Can I give you one more example? People's Bank did a series of lending for first homeowners, and they did one session in English, and then they followed it up in Spanish, and it was a 3-part series. So that was a step forward.
That sounds interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the presentation. I also add you guys have a lot of great business resources as well for a lot of our local entrepreneurs and small businesses. So
Yes.
thank you for the work that you do here in the city.
Thank you.
Assets is one of our other partners that we appreciate very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good evening, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you for your time and your great questions, and again, for your financial support.
We have one more item on our Finance Committee agenda, which is the operating budget financial update. Councilors, I sent out a quarterly financial update for all of you to review and wanted to provide that. I want to thank Director Tina Campbell for providing some highlights that I'd like to go over as part of this update, and we'll welcome her to answer any questions or provide any additional feedback. As a follow-up for the mayor's report in July regarding the budget year-to-date, I want to take this opportunity to review now that we have a financial report in hand. Because we are halfway through the year, we should be at about 50% or less of spending and 50% or more of revenue. We are currently showing at about 57% of revenue and about 39% of expenses, which are both positive numbers to see. Two specific highlights regarding revenue that are in regards to our real estate tax as well as our earned income tax. All of the real estate tax deadlines are now passed, and we are at about 94% of expected revenue. This is approximately where we have been in past years as of June 30th, and we will continue to receive real estate taxes throughout the next few months as late payments arrive. In regards to the earned income tax, we receive some small monthly payments of earned income tax, but most companies process this quarterly. This line is only showing 30% of the goal, but that is expected because of the quarterly lag. Year to date, we are tracking about 7% ahead of 2023, so we anticipate ending the year slightly higher than the goal in this tax revenue. In regards to expenses, in general, expenses are running behind budget, which is good. We are currently at 39% of our expenses. Most of our debt payments are not included in the expense line yet, as they are paid in the fall. And if we take this known amount into account, we are about 47.7% of the budget. This still means an annualized savings of 4.6% of approximately $3.38 million. If we can stay consistent with this, we will eliminate the need to use cash reserves this year. So that's a brief update on some of the highlights on the quarterly report that was provided to all of council. And if there's anything that I missed or anything that you would like to add, Director Campbell, happy to welcome you to the podium. If not, any questions or comments from or the committee or full council?
I will have a few questions.
Councilor Diaz?
You want me to go ahead? Okay, cool. So I was looking through it and I noticed that the solicitor's making $136,000, but it was budgeted at $134 for professional services. So can you explain exactly what constitutes that professional service?
Yeah, so most of the departments have a professional service line included in them. For the solicitor's office in particular, that line includes fees from consultants or attorneys that we would need to pull in if our solicitor needs additional expertise in, in areas that he's working in. So that would be what that line item is for specifically.
And I can give a specific example. So in our, we have legal fees that are related to a number of issues related to housing. And housing that I'm going to report on in our next meeting, some of those legal fees, as well as our zoning hearing board, which has an independent solicitor, is paid out of that line item. We also retain external counsel, and you might recall that related to the zoning hearing board, there was the matter related to the Airbnbs, and so that was a significant expense for this year. And then that's just a couple of examples. Our other legal fees are typically associated with the enterprise funds related to our stormwater long-term control plan negotiations and Manheim Township ongoing litigation.
The next question that I have, we have a IT person that comes in, and according to, I've heard that it's $150 per hour. Do you have a total amount for the past 6 months, how much he has been working for the city, or how much has been paid to him, allocated to him?
I'm not exactly sure which person that might be. We have a full IT staff here, so there's 7 people on our data and IT team. We do have called a managed service provider, which helps us with network servicing. That's a contract, so it's, and I can provide that contract if you'd like.
If you can provide that, because I'm trying to figure out, using his services as a consultant, basically what it is. What it would amount to on a 6 months, basis versus having somebody full-time. That's where I'm trying to figure out what is going to save the city money regarding having someone that makes that amount of money and how many hours he's actually investing into the city. As well as we have many consultants. And I had sent you an email regarding how many consultants we have and how much has been paid out to these consultants. And I would like to know what these consultants are. Like, is it related to budgeting? Is it anything related to any particular department? Whether it's neighborhood engagement? What consultants do we use and how much are we paying out?
Yeah, so all of the consultants would be listed in the professional services lines, and those are across all departments. So it's going to really vary depending on the department, what they're using consultants for. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Public Works would use consultants for if they need architects to come in and design projects, or engineers to come in to help with the engineers here. Those would be listed in the consultant lines. Some of them are very quick consulting, so some of them can just last a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and others last for, a number of months. There's some planning consultants that would come in, so it just kind of varies across the departments, but all of those would be listed in the professional services lines in the budget.
Do you have anything like itemized, like how long they've used them? What's the amount that each person has been paid? Because I know some consultants could run from $80,000 to $100,000 in a year. So I'm just trying to figure out how much and what, is there any repetitive services that are used for the same department? So if I could get that information, I would really appreciate it.
So I'll just jump in here just to say, Councilor Diaz, I appreciate the question. And I'm just trying to understand how we can get you this information, because we have consultant agreements that have a variety of expertise that's included in the consultant, and we pay different rates depending on how many hours, different engineers, senior engineers, junior, there's different levels in the organization, they charge different amounts. So, short of providing you copies of all the consultant agreements, I'm not sure exactly how to answer that, and that would be dozens of consultant agreements.
Is there a way to get like how many hours and what the actual amount is?
There would definitely be a way to give you a summary of the consultants, the professional services line, and the consultants and what has been paid year to date, but that will not get you hourly rates because the rates can vary within each individual contract depending on who is working.
And Mayor Sriracha, Director Campbell, just to clarify for full council, these professional services were built into the budget for 2024 that council did vote on and pass, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And some of them are covered through grant funds like the Vision Zero, although we're still trying to get it negotiated through that, but there are other consultant agreements that are covered through grant funds as well. So not all of them are coming out of the general fund. Some of them are coming out of grant lines as well as our enterprise lines. So when we get to consultants and talking about our enterprise funds, that's a whole other thing because we have consultants that are doing a variety of engineering and cost analyses related to our wastewater, water, and stormwater systems, for example. And that would be, anyway, that's where we get into dozens.
I'm looking at focusing mostly on the general fund. How much, not so much the grants, because we obviously, once we get the grants, that's something that is budgeted in and paid out. But more so what the taxpayers are paying, the Lancaster City residents are paying. That's basically what I'm driving to, where I'm getting at. So anything you can provide would be helpful. And then I'll go to my next question. Now, for the past few years, I've opted out of the health insurance completely, like not even taking the 50% stipend, whatever it is for the insurance. Due to PHI, I do understand I don't need names, but out of all the city council people, are they opting out with the 50%? Do you know? Is there how much money has been paid out? Is basically what I'm looking at. What exactly where the expenses are.
I don't have the total expenses in my head, but I can get those to you. I'm not sure that I can say exactly who's being paid out.
I need to know who it is. I work in the healthcare industry. I've worked in health insurance, so I understand. I'm just looking at numbers, like, this is how much money we have paid out with the 50% if you opt out premium, which, obviously, I have health insurance, so I decided not to have any additional income from whether it's a health insurance or anything else.
Yeah.
I have good insurance with LGH. So I'm just looking at the numbers. I'm trying to crunch the numbers and see, what is being spent.
Yeah, and I can get that total number for you.
I would really appreciate that. The last question related to City Council's education. I obviously went to NALEO, which we did get that paid by the city, and I appreciate that. And I was very happy to go to NALEO. Bill Gates took care of sponsoring the rest of my trip and education. And my question is, so is City Council going to the Pennsylvania Municipal League, or is that something that is going to be put aside and save money for the rest of the year?
I can actually answer that one. So for this year's budget, I opted to decrease the amount that any council member could utilize within the professional development and travel budget. That would be the same for the the Municipal League Conference, which we do have a conflict. I'll use this as a way to also talk about our special budget hearing that will be on the 12th. It does fall over the weekend of that conference, but also no members of council have requested to go to that conference. And at this point, in solidarity and in keeping with the rest of all of the city departments, my preference as the president of council would be to not utilize any additional funds this year to continue cost saving.
Thank you, President, for that information. And I think I got all the questions so far. I really would appreciate if you could send that to me. And the reason why is because I'm getting emails and people contacting me and asking me what's going on with the city. Why is it that we're completely going under with the amount of money that we owe? And I want to be able to contact my constituents and give them the information and not have to wait so long, and they're asking constantly, can you get me that information? It's making the city look bad if I can't respond to them. Thank you.
Councilor Diaz, I would just say that, feel free to include with Director Campbell in your emails in response, so that if there are follow-up questions, that they can go directly to Director Campbell for follow-up. She is very good at responding to emails. And I'll also just say that I think that the characterization of the city going under is maybe a little extreme. We obviously do have a budget deficit. We are working on those too, and I'm very sensitive to the questions that are coming in from residents and their need for information. And this, I think, just points to the conversation that we're having as part of home rule of introducing the budget earlier, having that information available, and making sure that people know about October 12th, which is when both of the regular budget and the home rule budget will be presented. And so we will do our very best to get you the information that you need about general fund consulting, the contract for IT, and what that's for. And I'll be speaking more to attorney fees, my next report for council, and then also the health insurance opt-out, which I might add is a conversation that is that took up a lot of time as part of the Home Rule Commission in terms of council being paid benefits, and appreciate that there are a lot of questions about healthcare costs across the city, since it is a significant driver of expenses year over year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President?
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Two things. One, just to kind of reiterate the point that Mayor Sriracha made, that the current home rule charter as proposed does give us greater oversight and more frequent reviews of city finances. So more of this is good. Second, a question, you mentioned expenses are running behind, even when you factor in the debt service, if they were to accumulate and not all come out at sort of one point of the year. Can you talk just a little bit about how we have managed to do that this year? Is it positions? Is it services, cost of materials? What is it?
Yeah, the majority of the savings here in this first half has been from vacancies. So either people have left and we haven't filled those positions right away, or we're kind of in transition. So that's about 1.8 million of the savings so far this year. Other savings, actually some of the technology contract that we just referenced, we changed that, so that has some savings in it. We're changing the way we're doing, we've talked about this before, but the way we're doing our fleet leases, so that has seen some savings for us. There's some policies in our vehicle, city vehicle usage, which has changed slightly, some sharing and that sort of thing, so that's going to save us or that has saved some things as well. And then the other pieces are just kind of trying to tighten up some of the, again, because we have people on staff now with IT, we've been really working hard on making sure that we have the right number of computers that we need, the right telephone numbers that we need, and cutting back where we don't need them, so that sort of thing as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilor Smith?
Thank you, Council Roy. Thank you, Director Campbell. And thank you to the city staff who has worked very hard this year to cut expenses. And I really do appreciate that. I had one question. Under the Stormwater Management Fund revenue line items, what is the miscellaneous revenue? It was budgeted at $4,000 and it's around $75,000, which is good, but could you speak on what goes into that miscellaneous revenue line item for stormwater management?
So I knew this, but I cannot remember right now. I'm going to have to get back to you on that, but we did have some discussion. I'm looking at Director Campbell back here to see if he might remember, but I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you. And then just my final question is how can we continue this great work that has been done in the first half of the year to finish out 2024 financials?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have been having a lot of discussions around needing to cut, and particularly as we're looking at the 2025 budgets, looking at kind of planning ahead, so thinking about particularly positions that maybe have been vacated in 2024 that we might be able to kind of restructure to either eliminate the role or change the role in a way that would make it easier to save. So we've been doing a lot of that, of having a lot of those conversations. I don't know, Mayor, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, just a couple of things. One is that while we are talking about 2025, we're also looking ahead to 2026, because without the home rule budget, there won't just be cuts and possibly property tax increases next year, but again in 2026, and then we'll just continue to repeat that cycle moving forward. So we are looking at, we won't have as much budget detail for 2026 as we will for 2025, but we do want to provide a 2-year look ahead as we look for the next budget cycle. The other thing to just say in terms of our conversations about reducing expenditures and how we're approaching this is thinking a lot about the core services of the city and what is expected of us as a community and accessibility from local government. And as we have these conversations about staffing and services, obviously we know that the majority of our budget is personnel. We're also thinking about the ways in which we can continue to leverage grant funds, that we can continue to explore thinning of fleet, computers, phones, which Tina mentioned, as well as, quite honestly, service lines that we just would no longer provide. And that includes everything. Is kind of on the table at this point in terms of the regular home rule budget. So we're tracking well at a halfway mark. We're going to have to continue. I think everybody hears it loud and clear. The staff are very aware of our budget situation. I've been sending regular updates. In September, I'll be going around and meeting with all of the departments across the city and all of the shifts to make sure that I'm answering questions that they have. It will be a time of a lot of anxiety for city staff, so I just want to elevate that. You know, a lot of people are concerned about their jobs, and I do understand that and recognize that we're also trying to retain talent through this transition as well, so that we don't have, that we can continue to maintain our core services without, people deciding that, well, they may not have a job, so they're going to go look for another job. So that's just, the turnover is also what we're trying to avoid as well. So this is some of the things we're talking about.
And thank you, because I do recognize the challenges and, the anxieties that city staff may have. And I want us to all be cognizant of that when we're moving into the future, that, these are our neighbors and these are, people whose jobs and livelihoods. So in one token, I do appreciate the city's utmost attention to the cutting of expenses, but I would also caution us to, think about those who serve the city every day. And I appreciate those remarks, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Abed. Thank you, Mayor Sarachi, for the remarks. Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Councilor Royal. Director Campbell, I just wanted to ask about the other income line. I I'm seeing a detail on page 2 of that report. And from looking at it, it looks like some of this is just funding that needs to be drawn. But on the other hand, there are some categories that I guess look like they may be falling behind a little bit. Can you speak to that a little bit, if that characterization is correct, or, yeah, just any comment you would have on that?
Yeah, so a couple of these things really are, they're mainly around timing, as you alluded to. So the parking violations are, they do a monthly payment, but then they true it up every 6 months. And so we actually just received the 6-month payment last week, so it's not showing on here. So that would be a piece that's on there. And then some of the fees are invoiced at one time in the year, and so again, those would come in at a separate time. I will say the other income line also includes 2 major items, which is the ARPA funds, which aren't allocated to that line until the end of the year, and then the cash reserve, which hopefully we won't have to use.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Great. Just a comment, I just kind of want to reiterate good news on this report. So we're ahead in revenues and, ahead in expenses as well. So really good stuff, and just want to commend the team for going line by line. I know you guys started very early on in this process and making sure that we're trying to save money wherever possible. So just want to commend you and the team to making sure we can do that. So thank you. That concludes the Finance Committee. Council President.
Thank you very much, Councilor Royo. Our next committee is Community Planning. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. We have one item on the agenda this evening, and that is the review of the Historical Commission's recommendations for 335 Ruby Street. Is the applicant here or someone from the Historical Commission? Yeah, let's hear a little bit about your project.
Welcome.
And the Historical Commission did meet, and it was recommended.
Recommended for approval, yes. My name's Stephen Funk. I'm Vice Chair of the Historical Commission. The reason that this application has become before the committee is because it involves demolition. So let me explain a little bit about what that demolition consists of. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing garage and build a new garage on the site. There's also a smaller component of the application which includes demolition of an existing rear porch and the addition of a new construction of a new addition on the foundations of that porch. That's the secondary, smaller portion of the project. I'd like to speak primarily about the larger portion, which is the garage. The existing garage is a one-story garage that's built right on the property line. So it's built within the rear yard and side yard setbacks, and it has been slowly collapsing into the neighbor's yard. So there's a definite need to do something about that. So what the applicant is proposing to do is to demolish the existing garage. It's a one-story garage, original to the house, and to build a new two-story garage, which includes two-car garage on the first floor and an accessory dwelling unit, an apartment on the second level, and to construct the garage to pull it in from the property lines so it's not within the side yard and rear yard setbacks. The commission recommended approval of this application because the design was sensitive to the Secretary of Interior standards and the city's design guidelines, as well as being sensitive to its neighbors. The new garage will be set back from the neighboring property so as not to obstruct any sunlight into their side of the house. The Historical Commission was actually really, really pleased with this proposal. It's a good design, and we think it'll be, an asset to the neighborhood, an improvement of the property.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee?
Councilor Craig, if I may. Thank you for the summary. Just curious if the neighbors were consulted in the process.
They were.
Shed
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there any further questions from the committee? Council as a whole? Spectacular. Sounds good. I'll make a motion to move this full council on the 13th. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That concludes community planning.
Thank you very much, Councilor Craig. We'll now move to the Public Works Committee. Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Committee has 3 items this evening. The first of which is Administration Resolution Number 59, authorizing an antenna right-of-way easement with Verizon. And I believe Director Campbell will be providing some information on that.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you very much for having me present a little bit about this. It's a very short, it's a very administrative piece. This is a piece of property that the city of Lancaster owns in East Lampeter that Verizon Cellular needs access to for improvement of their technology to connect to that existing antenna. They have asked specifically where ordinarily we would just enter into an agreement with the entity in question. Verizon has specifically requested that there be a resolution at the city council level for approval of this piece of access. It is strictly called an antenna site right-of-way grant agreement, and it's not atypical for this kind of use. It's just that in this case, they've asked for a resolution from the city.
Thank you, Director Campbell. I'll open it up to any questions from the Public Works Committee and Council as a whole. Council President.
Thank you. Just to clarify, is this a cell tower or something else? I'm just trying to conceptualize.
We understand it as a cell tower, but I understand your confusion because...
Horizontal water tower, because now I'm looking at the...
So it's access to cellular technology. So it's not specifically an antenna, it's upgrading of existing cellular technology.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilor Craig.
So there needs to be a resolution now, and they need to have access to technology, is that what you said?
They need access to our building, to our site. We own the site. And it's not unlike if someone has an easement over your property or wants permission to cross or have access to something, a utility that's on your property for their use. We need to be able to provide that permission to them. There's no cost to the city. Any expense that they may incur for building or making the connection to that technology is theirs, unless we prohibit or change the access. If we say 3 years from now, you may no longer have access to that site, and therefore they have to find a different site, then the city incurs, and it's written in here, then the city incurs the cost for that. But at this moment, there is no cost to the city for doing this.
Okay.
And
You seem uncertain.
I'm a little perplexed here, but I'm going to let that go for the moment.
I just wanted to follow up to maybe provide some clarity because I believe our conversation earlier today, Director Campbell, you were saying that part of the reason they're asking for this resolution is because it's not a property within the city limits, it's in the East Lampeter Township, and that's part of the reason they're asking for it.
That is correct. That ordinarily, one would not have asked for a city resolution for this. What we imagine, and it has not been directed to me that this is the reason, but because it is a city-owned property in a different municipality, this provides the clarity and the line of responsibility, if you will. It is just as we as an owner would be allowed, or anyone as an owner would be asked to give permission to utilize their particular property. Here, as it's a municipality in a different municipality's property in a different municipality, and I'm not a lawyer in this regard, I'm imagining that the reason that they wanted and they specifically requested this resolution is so that it's not confused that it's East Lampeter that's providing the permission. It's the city of Lancaster who owns the property that's providing the permission.
I think the part that kind of doesn't sit well with me is if 3 years down the road, like you said, we change our mind and don't want to give them permission and we do a new resolution that says you can no longer have permission to, do whatever it is that you're doing. That the cost of that is going to fall back on us. And that's kind of where I have a problem.
That's a very, very rare situation.
Okay.
We're receiving rent for providing access to that site. So it's a potential, modest, but potential revenue generator for us. It provides access to greater technology for a host of other reasons. The reasons we might prohibit such a use would be if, for some reason, we are either selling it and there's no way of providing an MOU that would maintain that access, because they currently have access, they would like to continue to have access, or with this approved resolution, they would have access, and they would want to continue to have access.
Right, and
It's a very rare situation where
you answered my other question that I had too, that were we being compensated for allowing them access to
yes,
a building that is owned by the city?
in the sense that because we own the property, we get some revenue for providing that access to them.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Diaz.
So now that you said that, how much is the revenue that the city's getting?
That I do not know. I apologize. We can probably find that out.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from council as a whole? Councilor Cleese?
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. I have one question, maybe two. What is the timeline for the installation of the antenna?
That I do not know. Part of it, they'll have to do their own assessment and engineering assessment. I'm assuming that the technology is relatively straightforward, but I do not know the technology in question. They want to be able to move forward quickly with it, but I do not know if that means a matter of weeks, a matter of months, or even a matter of a year or more.
Do we know that if the installation of the antenna complies with the local regulations?
It will have to, because it also is subject to the PUC. So it will have to meet any and all regulations at the local level, the county level, and the state level.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Councilor Cleese. Any other questions from council as a whole? Any question or comment from the public? Hearing none, I make a motion to move Resolution 59, 2024 to our regular meeting of council on August 13th.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next resolution is Resolution 60, which is authorizing application for a grant for the South Ann and Judiata Streetscape Project. Director Stephen Campbell.
Yes, so this is a project related to our Safe Streets for All and to, by extension, the Vision Zero, but this is primarily Safe Streets for All. A commitment to a particular intersection at South Ann and Judiata in Southeast. It was a project that was initiated maybe 3 years ago in terms of design and discussion. And when, in the course of that discussion, it was clear that the project needed to expand somewhat because Juniata also connected to Milburn Park and to Washington Elementary. So there were other concerns in terms of the public that continues to use the public right-of-way in that area. Initially, the project was assumed to be approximately about $1.4 million or so, and we actually did go after funds from Keystone Communities in the amount of $450,000. But as we worked with the community and saw the nature of the challenges to be addressed, the project increased in size, not because of the scope in that particular intersection, but because it expanded from Rockland Street over to Stevens Avenue. So the project now is approximately $2.7 million. It requires an $820,000 match, but that $450,000 that we got from Keystone Communities counts towards that match. And we had applied $100,000 from the 2022 bond towards the match earlier. Now that it is at $2.7 million, we need a match of approximately $820,000. So there's $270,000 that we're wanting to apply from an anticipated 2025 bond issue. And the balance will be the $1.9 million that is being requested here as a grant application. So again, our match is approximately just under around 25% of the project, and we leverage that to 3 times the amount. In a worst-case scenario, if we do not get the full amount, we will phase the project rather than reduce the scope, because we have decided and discussed amongst the community and in our own staff that it is important not only to have the elements that are in this public right-of-way intervention, but that it'll make a huge improvement and is perfectly aligned with the Vision Zero, Safe Streets for All, and pedestrian-friendly programs that we have put in place.
Thank you, Director Campbell. My question for you would just be, can you describe some of the specific treatments that are going to be applied specifically to the intersection of South Ann and Juniata and South Lime?
Yes, several of them are. There's a wide variety of interventions that are proposed, including curb and sidewalk, ADA ramps, full depth bituminous pavement, but one of the most important elements is a raised intersection, which serves in many ways as a pedestrian-friendly way of crossing, especially at the school intersection, and it serves for all intents and purposes as a speed bump, because you have to slow your roll before you get there, but the raised platform is something that allows pedestrians to cross in either direction across the intersection unhindered. It's one of the features that the community was very much looking forward to as a way of being respectful of this community and accommodate the needs of the children who come through the community. But it also will include traffic bollards. There'll be some stormwater and inlet connection, and that part of that funding from the bond, the 2025 bond, will go towards that. There's electrical conduit, street furnishings, signage and pavement markings, as well as street trees and landscaping.
Thank you, Director Campbell. I'll open it up to comments from the Public Works Committee. Councilor Diaz.
Mr. Campbell, when you're saying you're going to raise the bump, those wonderful bumps, is that all going to be, what type of material is going to be used?
It's usually bituminous, which is kind of an asphalt with paving markings on top. Sometimes we'll do it as an embossed or impressed textured surface, but the grade, it will be a very gradual rise so that you're not flying through the intersection and ruining your car or anything like that, but you clearly come to a stop or come to a very slowing your roll when you get to this intersection. But the whole intersection gets raised, and then it goes back down to the street.
So it's similar to the one over on College Avenue, because I know that even driving myself.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, yes, that's correct.
So do we have like a certain amount of height or?
Yes, it's all engineered. We do not like very, very high ones for a variety of reasons, but we do want it to be substantial enough so that it is durable, low maintenance, and will provide the goal that we want it to fulfill. We're also looking at this as a case study, as a pilot that may be used in other communities as well. We're including raised intersections on Water Street and this community, and we're hoping that this is a nice alternative to speed bumps. Many people look for speed bumps as a way for speed control. We don't like speed bumps for a variety of reasons, not the least of which being maintenance during snow or for cleaning of streets, but a raised platform, a raised intersection is something that's much easier to maintain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Any other comments from the Public Works Committee? Council as a whole? Comments from the public? Hearing none, I will make a motion to move Resolution 60 to our full meeting of council on August 13th.
So,
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Last item on the Public Works Committee agenda is Resolution number 61, authorizing application for a pedestrian safety planning grant. Director Campbell.
Yes, so this is an enhancement of our Safe Streets for All. The $12.7 million technically is from Safe Streets for All, but that is our Vision Zero grant, and it is largely focused on the capital construction, some of the design and capital construction of a variety of interventions related to Vision Zero on the high-injury network, the high-injury intersections, street maintenance, street control, street lining, lining of pavement markings, et cetera, et cetera. There's a sub-cohort of Vision Zero, which is related to safe areaways around schools, specifically safe routes to school. And we have identified that of the approximately 14 schools in the city, there's several that are key and are either on or near the higher injury network. We are looking for additional money to enhance the study of the areas around those schools for the Safe Streets for All program and not take away from the capital money that is already designated for everything from Vision Zero interventions, including towards the tail end of that intervention, the possibility of two-way conversions. So this money, this $500,000 is what is being sought, is to result in walk audits, inventories and maps, display safe routes, recommend and prioritize necessary infrastructure improvements to address inadequate, missing, or outdated bicycling and pedestrian treatments, and policy changes. We're looking for this to come sooner than or in line with the Safe Streets for All funding, and we're looking for it to be not only interesting for those particular schools, but as a lead for how to think about the intersections around the other schools as well.
Thank you very much, Director Campbell. This one's really important, so I appreciate that we're looking to pursue this. Do we have any questions from the Public Works Committee? Councilor Cleese.
Thank you, Councilor Hirsch. Director Campbell, what specific safety improvements are expected as a result of this project?
It's going to be a wide variety of things under consideration, everything from neck downs to new paving to lighting, signage, training, different kinds of street markings for display, for pathfinding, other infrastructure improvements which may or may not be related to green infrastructure. A lot of what we do around the schools is also linked to the STEM program, so people, students in particular, can learn what we are doing as an example, the fact that we do street cleaning is not related so much to keeping the streets clean, although it's important to keep the vermin out of the way. It's more related to our nine permanent minimum controls, which goes towards the cleaning of the water that goes into the Conestoga River. So where we can, we link the safety issues to the curriculum, to the needs of the schools, whether it's an elementary school, middle school, high school, et cetera, and to continuing to make greater awareness of the public and of the children to their surroundings.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Hirsch.
Thank you, Councilor Cleeks. Any other questions or comments from the Public Works Committee, from council as a whole? Council President Baker.
Thank you. So I know that a huge part of the original Vision Zero project and grant was to do a lot of outreach in the community. I'm curious if our seeking this additional funding specifically for Safe Routes to School was a result of conversations and needs that were found during that outreach period.
Well, frankly, yes. A lot of the work that we did, especially in 2020 through 2022, was finding out from the different communities what kinds of interventions they wanted. And especially when we had those meetings at schools and had some of the school leadership present, what they were looking for was a different type of engagement. We knew that a sub-cohort of Vision Zero was safe streets around schools. And this was a great opportunity to figure out how to get at that information. And that goes towards some of the scope of this. The walk-out audits is not simply just walking around the neighborhood and seeing what's going on. It's very specific times of the day, times of the year, times of the seasons, and working with children. What do they perceive? How do they perceive it? And trying to adopt and adapt best management practices in that realm. But yes, it was part of the listening exercise. And I'm very proud of the fact that a lot of what we do in engagement is teaching us what to do and how to reach out to the public, to the students, to the people who are using the infrastructure very much.
That's great. And do you think that that will help us be considered for this grant because we are backed up by the data from our community?
Yes, happily. I don't want to get ahead of us. I don't want to count on money that we don't yet have. But we, not only in Vision Zero, we in DPW, we in the city of Lancaster have distinguished ourselves by being engaging with the public in ways that have not been seen in many other areas of the state. It's very interesting, as an example, for those of you who may have gone to the ice cream social the other night related to the 3 parks. We had some incredibly imaginative schemes that from the architects that were proposed that came directly from the input of the public on a one-to-one basis, on small group basis. We had several community outreach efforts in those regards. We really are distinguishing ourselves as being an engaging community, and that is kind of the value added, the special sauce in many ways that's giving us what I like to think of as a leg up when we ask for these kinds of things. This is why I think it's important for us to be asking for this separate from the 12.7, because it's an enhancement. It's not just execution of, but it's an enhancement of and trying to build qualitatively the intervention we want to put in place.
Thank you, and I want to thank your team, who always does a great job with outreach. They're at every event we go to, and it's really made Vision Zero and those efforts top of mind across the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cindy thanks you, Emma thanks you, Carl thanks you, the community thanks you.
Thank you, Council President. Any other questions or comments from council? From the public?
I'm in public tonight and just say I thought the ice cream social was brilliant. There were 150 people that showed up to give us great feedback about the Joe Jackson Tot Lot, the Ogans Little Parklet, and South End Park. So I loved it. It was perfect, and I was so happy to see so many kids and their parents show up.
Yeah, and so many of those ideas that they had contributed in the past are showing up in those proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Campbell. I will make a motion to move resolution number 61 to our full meeting of council on August 13th.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and that concludes the Public Works Committee this evening.
Thank you very much. We now move to the Committee of the Whole, where we have one item. I'll just, before I go to that one, just draw attention to the fact that we typically have a report of the Chair of the Home Rule Study Commission in these reports, but due to a work commitment, Commissioner Adams was not able to be at our summer meeting, so he has submitted his report in writing, and I believe that got to all of us, but I will double-check that at the end of this meeting so that we all do have it. Our one item on the Committee of the Whole this evening is Resolution Number 62, 2024. This is authorizing a flag raising for... I'm sorry, my whole screen just went blank. For Puerto Rican Heritage Month. It was submitted by City Council. It was submitted by Councilor Arroyo, actually. Councilor Arroyo, do you have anything to add for this flag raising or anything that you'd like to highlight for us?
Nothing more than it will be celebrating National Puerto Rican Heritage Month in November. So just going through the process and looking forward to celebrating with the community then.
Thank you very much. And can you confirm those dates? Because every time I click to open it, I can't see it. I think it's November 20th, but
I want to say November 21st.
Thank you.
Let me double check my calendar.
It says November 19th in the resolution.
19th.
Thank
And the rain date
With-
is the 20th.
The 20th, yes.
Okay, thank you. I had read it earlier and then it's just blank. So I appreciate your assistance on that. Terrific. And so members of council, as you remember, we do need to authorize these flag raisings. They need to be applied for at least 20 days in advance. And so is there any additional council discussion on Resolution 62? From the public? All right, then hearing none, I'll make a motion that we move Resolution 62, 2024 to our agenda for August 13th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second and another second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes the Committee of the Whole this evening. Mr. Harris, you have submitted your clerk's report in writing, is that correct?
I have, yes.
Thank you very much, councilors. You have access to that report. Having reached the conclusion of our business this evening, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Now we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.